the American and British people are learning about a lot of treachery that have gone on in the high echelons of our society. And, to me it is quite horrific that we as people should be subjected to such treachery. We didn't deserve it. To be handed over to Europe, trussed up, and then for people to say, like the Conservatives, that, well, it's been done now and what can you do? It's like saying, well, Hitler's got the army, we better surrender. And that is exactly what these people are doing. It makes you absolutely furious. Now they're going to stop any other things. Well, it's like the horse is bolted. What we need is a referendum to clear the air. I mean, they've never tested the air for, I don't know, 50 odd years, and people are absolutely furious. They try to hold it down, they lie about it, they deceive, and they're like traitors. And the world today reminds me more and more of George Orwell. We've got armies here and we've got armies there, all attacking, being attacked, etc. If you looked at that was what they were doing, to keep people's minds off their own troubles. And to say that Islam is a peaceful religion, I'll read from what Ayatollah Khomeini said. He said that people who in actual fact say that Islam is a peaceful religion are ignorant because they have not read the Quran. He said the Quran injuncts many warfare and attacks, because it is a military type religion. And the difference between the Islamic religion and the Christian religion is that they say if you can't convert the infidel, cut his head off. The Christian religion says, well, if you won't listen, just shake your feet off and go. Or love your enemies 7 times 7. Forgive your enemies. So all these huge differences in the whole mental setup of the people. And I used to attend, well, not attend, but I had to go through various mosques when I was living in South Africa on my business, and some of those tracks always took me through the madrasa where they were teaching the children, and they were for hours on end chanting away from verses in the Quran, chanting, no thought, what do you think about this, what do you think, nothing like that, just sat there chanting all the time. And I looked and I thought, we're going to have trouble with these people. And now look at the trouble we've got. And they think they can take a man and call him a major, and take another guy and call him a policeman who's just taken off the street, and he's put amongst our men with weapons on and all this sort of thing. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, from America at least, they said there was 13 men killed and 30 wounded. They said 5 British were killed. They didn't tell how many wounded. We don't know how many wounded. Taking that as a proportion, I should say it was about at least 6 to 8 wounded. So it is probably 10, if I look at the proportion here, probably about 10 or 12. Probably about 10 or 12 are wounded, but those aren't reported. And that's what they said on Question Time last night. Isn't it about time we knew how many were wounded in this whole thing? But that would be too embarrassing. And they talk about going on and doing something in Afghanistan. What on earth are we doing there? Except the armaments bazaar is selling a lot of arms there. Of course, a lot of bullets, a lot of arms, and a lot of guns, trucks, etc. And and our men are fodder for what? For experiments, to put these men who are being brainwashed right from an early age. And I'm talking about, I'm 66 now, and I saw this happening at 25, so that was 41 years ago. A lot of those people that I saw now will be 41. So they were about 10 at the time, so they'd be 51. And so this has been going on for a long time, this brainwashing in these madrasas, for hours on end, every day. So, what we have is a very bad situation. They said that Afghanistan is a threat, and they said, well, there's no threats come out of Afghanistan ever. That is just a lie. And then there's, well, it comes from Pakistan. Yes, well, it does come from Pakistan. But the people who did the blowing up in this country, and the bombs in the airports, and the bombs in London, and did not come from any of those areas. They were local, bred and born. So, this is a lot of nonsense that this lot is keeping it down. This is talking in reverse. Since 9/11, nothing has come out of Afghanistan towards us. It has all come from Pakistan, apparently. And so a lot of those people who hit 9/11 apparently were from Saudi Arabia, Saudi. So this idea of us winning the minds of people is ridiculous. These 2 shootings have driven a coach and horses right the way through all this liberal philosophy. what we should be doing is looking to see what our great forefathers did, and how they went in and sorted things out, and they did sort things out, and they did create an empire that was pretty law-abiding, and people were pleased to live in it. Matter of fact, one stage it's called the kingdom of God on earth. It was so peaceful. But today, what have we got? We've got a whole lot of people here who are creating murder, and we've got all these weird concepts, and it's weirdness in our own nations that we don't understand. Our democracy has been undermined. We've been handed over into a dictatorship in Europe. There's no way anybody would ever, and they don't even call themselves that, they call it post-democracy in Europe, because it is ruled by the Commission, who is ruled by the elite of Europe, the moneyed men of Europe. That's what it's all about. They own the euro. How did the euro come together? They own the dollar. And if you don't think I'm talking the truth, well, go and study the situation. The Federal Reserve is not a US bank. It belongs to Morgans, it belongs to Rockefeller, it belongs to Rothschilds. And probably the same thing is in Europe as well. As a matter of fact, none of the reserve banks can we find out who owns them. That's the British Reserve Bank, the South African Reserve Bank, and most of the reserve banks around the world. In other words, these are banks that are held by these extremely wealthy people. And they're not worth millions or billions, they're worth trillions, and they really are. So, they float above the whole situation, and they make these decisions. And, one of the things that our friend wrote about, his name was Thomas Jefferson, and what he said was the following: I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous than our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless in the continent their fathers conquered. And that is true today. But it says here, more dangerous than to our liberties than standing armies. I don't think in the history of the world that there's been any damage, so much damage done by any army as these banks have done. I mean, our government has given them in the last, since 2007, 2.45 trillion. That's not billion, that's not million, it's 2.45 trillion, which I think is 2,450 billion. It's so much money that we can't even conceive of, because it's bigger than the GDP of this country. So how on earth are we supposed to pay this lot back? And there's two men who wrote a book. One was Rees Mogg, another guy was called Dale. It was called The Great Reckoning, and I have it here. And those men laid out the complete scenario. He said the problems would start after 2000. This book was written in 1993. He said it would first be inflation, which we had. All the houses were going up, prices were going up, cars were going up, followed by deflation. As you see, the cars are coming down and the house prices are collapsing and the food prices are collapsing, followed by hyperinflation, which is exactly what King has just said. He said we're going to go through hyperinflation. That's what he just said yesterday. I think it was on the 5th. It's on this internet somewhere as well, his speech. And he just said there's going to be hyperinflation. Well, why would there be hyperinflation? Goodness gracious me. Well, if most of our food comes from overseas and the pound is set to decline, when they know that's going to happen, then, if you're paying £1 for something today, tomorrow you'll be paying £2 and then £3, because if the pound goes down, the import costs go up. And all these things, car parts, everything is just going to go through the roof. So, there's your hyperinflation. Plus, we've got to pay all this money back to these banks that they've given to the banks. Well, I just continue. I think that we as a people should, in actual fact, clear our parliament, like was said, and we should, in actual fact, get ourselves new governments in quickly, as soon as we can. Oliver Cromwell cleared the government, the parliament, and he made a very, very big speech. But I don't have time to give that. You can see it yourself. The time is now that when this new election comes around, we must, in actual fact, cut down the Lib-Lab con, who've let us down so badly, and then Cameron let us even more down yesterday, and we must, in actual fact, vote in BNP, must try and vote in UKIP and all the others, because I don't support UKIP, BNP or any of these. I think we must get them in.